Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Expected Buffalo, the podcast. I'm Chad Dinamenesis, and he's Anthony Chandra. Anthony, it's good to get you back, man, but when we're doing another one of these episodes, I don't know if you know, this is number 99.
Oh, we're so close.
We're so close.
Oh my gosh.
We gotta put our thinking caps on for the next one.
Yeah, we got to do something cool.
Maybe
the top 100 Sabres. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe we should go to Disney and do it. We should do it live in Disney.
We should do it live in Disney. Our record while I'm located on the premises of Disney grounds is 3-0 this season, and that's something. Yeah, I just wasn't watching games because I'm, it's Disney. Like, you're not going to stop spending time with your family to watch the Buffalo Sabres, of all things. And yeah, I'm just looking at Twitter and it's oh my God, they're killing it. And like we were talking about before the show, it's not that I was not watching the game because I didn't see Mondays either because I was at work and they played 12:30 on a Monday. Dumbest thing ever. So I think it's actually my proximity to Disney. The closer I am to Disney World, the better the Sabres get. So I think I may just have to work remotely for the rest of the season just to ensure that we bust the drought.
We'll try to put that in the Expected Buffalo budget for you.
I'll just be on Remy's Ratatouille ride and reading about Tage Thompson hat tricks and
I guess, is that the thing though? You can be there, but are you not allowed to watch it? Right? Because you'd have to.
I don't know. We'd have to experiment. Right? We'd have to experiment with it. I feel like I can't. I feel like I just got to be part of Disney and just get all my news about it from Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Disney rules, by the way. It's
it does rule. It does rule.
It's funny because I grown adults being yo, you got to go on the Ratatouille ride. I'm I am 33. I don't know if any of it. No, it's dope. It's the tech is just so freaking cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and they got me. I felt less like a man after this. They got me where you're on a track in a pod, right? You're in a thing.
Yep.
And there's a big, huge screen. It's an all-encompassing screen around you, right? Very immersive, right? And they jerk the thing forward a little bit as on the screen you're falling through a vent as a rat in Ratatouille. I grabbed the bar. It got me. I was yeah. I knew I wasn't. I knew I was stationary. I knew I was stationary. I knew I wasn't a rat falling through a vent. However, my subconscious was not aware, and I felt less. I'm a little humbled. I think you're going to hear a more humbled me on this episode as a result of that moment. My kid laughed at me. No, I'm just kidding. That didn't happen. But
look,
it was embarrassing.
It happened. I'll tell you a fun Disney story, then we'll get into the team. So
let's do it.
You'll appreciate it because when I went to Disney, I hope he's listening to this episode when I say this story. We went to Disney last May, I believe, or April, whatever. And we went with two groups of friends, and one of them was Bill, old podcast friend Bill.
Miss him dearly.
So Bill, by the way, him and his wife are the Disney professionals. They go multiple times a year. So
Eddie did that.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So this is our first time going full. So 2 years ago we just went one day. This was our first full Disney trip. So we wanted to go with them, friends and close age, and our kids know each other. And then plus they knew all the tips and everything.
Okay.
So I am not a big ride person. I'll do some of the rides, I'll do the Toy Story rides, but I'm not doing roller coasters up and down or anything that flips or that spins. So Bill really wanted me to do one specific ride with him. Remember, I just said I don't like rides that flip or especially spin. He talked me into sneakily, without telling me, to do Guardians with him. Now, if you ever run on Guardians, you will know that I found out it spins. You do circles down the roller coaster thing. So I'll never forget, as first of all, waiting for this long line, and then you kind of go through, get in your thing, and you kind of do the whole montage, the video thing of while you're doing it and the whole thing. And then it comes up I forgot, one of the characters says, "Wait, did they say we have to go back in time?" And then someone goes back in time, and then when he said that, I realized, are we about to go backwards? I turned around and looked at Bill behind me, and he just had this grin on his face, and I just yelled, "You fuck!" And then boom, you take off backwards going. It's spins, the thing you're in also moves and rotates. The car that you're in. got out and literally almost basically like had tears in my eyes. Like it was
hilarious.
it was
I thought
rough.
this was gonna end that you like vomited on a Yondu animal.
No, I didn't puke or anything. But I was at the point of almost like I wasn't even like knowing that like I was really crying. I think it was just the fear and like the screaming. I got up and there was water.
Not crying. I'm just allergic to jerks.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah. So I always give Bill shit about that. I'm never going on any rides again. And I don't trust him on anything. Although I shouldn't say that because the other rides did make me go were pretty cool. But
so I like the stuff that makes me fear for my life. Like that's my favorite shit. Like I like going fast. I like dropping. But like I was there with my very young children, neither of whom were tall enough to do any of that or had like the disposition to want to go on a roller coaster. So I was just kind of like, guess I'll go on the Elsa ride again.
Elsa ride was cool. My kids really like Soarin'. I don't know if they were tall enough to do that at Epcot. That was cool. Soarin' at Epcot.
Nice. Oh yeah. It's funny. I actually missed that one. I got stuck. My youngest fell asleep in a stroller, and I was just like babysitting, and I was like, "You guys go ahead."
Yeah, my kid liked. Oh, the older one liked it. That was fun.
Nice.
Okay, we've been going for 6 minutes. I guess we should talk about the hockey team, right?
6 minutes is the perfect amount of time to talk about Disney. Yeah, let's go into hockey. Any more or less, no good.
Well, when you're there full time, at least part time, then we'll have more time to talk about it. Okay, 16 games, Anthony. We are through here, almost at the quarter mark, and the quarter mark for us numbers is when it becomes real. Essentially, that's kind of when we start to believe you are who you are, basically. So recently, I think this worked out pretty well because I do these mini episodes and I talk a lot. People know how I feel. I'm going to start with you, and you tell me kind of just generally. I know we have some things we want to talk to, like offense, defense, and the power play and the pairs we'll get to. But just broad strokes. Where are you at through 16 games?
I feel like they're very similar to how they've been. And I guess what I mean is the hot and cold they go through where, man, over the last few years, right, there have been stretches where it seems, oh, wow, they've really got it figured out. Like they're hitting a groove. Things are going well. And they followed up with like just an embarrassing loss to a bottom feeder team. And I feel like this team, I think it was Darlene who said it, like, we got humbled. You should be humble always because you are a team that currently holds the league's longest playoff drought. And Darlene in particular has been here for what, 5-6 years of it? So like, hey, I think maybe you as the captain should be preaching, let's not get humbled because we should already be humbled, right? 3 wins in a row. Again, one against Dallas, which big, that's important. It's good. That's a very strong team. I just realized as I said that's not even true. That was like a week and a half ago. My perception of reality is warped. But regardless,
that's a good one.
Rangers, sure, right? I knew there was a strong team in there. I don't know why I thought it was Rangers. But regardless, I mean, great. That's really good. Like build off that. But to go into Montreal feeling like king shit and get kind of embarrassed like that. And I know goaltending was abysmal in that game. I'm not absolving, that part of it, but I just feel like that's very just emblematic of who they've been the last 3 years, where they get hot and then they crash, and then it's as soon as they start approaching either 500 or like playoff conversation is when they start just falling apart. And so until I see some more sustained success over a stretch, which again is kind of tough to accomplish in 16 games, which I'm cognizant of, but I don't know, man. I haven't seen enough this year so far to show me that they're actually different, that they're actually better. Lance actually put out an article, either I think just before they went on the 3-game streak, basically like it by every metric, they're actually kind of worse right now, which I think that's changed a little, and I know we'll talk about that. But they're kind of the same to me. And again, it's a lot of new faces. You're only 16 games in. There's stuff to like. The goaltending has sucked, which has really hurt them. You know what I mean? So I'm not closing the door on, they're cooked. Like it's the same team. We're screwed. I'm not trying to put that energy out there, but unenthused by what I've seen, but like hopeful still, I guess.
Yeah, I think that I'm in a similar spot to where you are. So the way I put it before the Montreal game, and I think it's still a spot where I sit with them, is in a sense, this reminds me of the 2022-23 team with a few different things. One,
Okay.
I think they're going to end up getting better goaltending. Luukkonen has been fine until the Montreal game, and then come to find out, well, he played with an injury, which is like, why would you do that? Well, maybe we
Right.
get that a little bit. So okay, well, I guess we'll give them a pass on that one. I think they're a little bit better of a team defensively too, which I think will help them.
That's probably right.
But what I'm trying to look up right now very quickly is, well, I'll say the one other thing that's similar is their finishing is very good this season as a team. So that's good. The same thing that it was that season. If their power play can, I don't think it's still generating a lot of good quality looks, but at the very least it's scoring. So again, your finishing is coming through there, which at the end of the day, that's fine. Yeah, just like goals for per 60 at 5-on-5. They're fourth in the league, 3.07. So that literally just like it was, back then during that season. But I think the one difference we're going to find here, and it's something I've really honed on, almost to the point where I feel bad that I've focused on it so much, but I think it's super important, also super interesting because it's very un-Lindy Ruff team-like. Because the difference is their shot quality offensively. So in 2022-23, they finished 14th in expected goals for per 60, the 2.77. This year so far, and again, there's a lot of time still, but where they sit right now is all the way down to 27th with a 2.30. So essentially, their finishing is saving them from, with their shot quality they're building. And that's really been a thing going back to what we saw in Prague that I thought maybe just like just the Devils early in the season, and that's just the point shot, the distance, location, bad shot, selection, all of that was the thing that kind of went away when they came back, and then now is consistently creeped its way back in again. So I think I don't want to get too deep into it because we will get to that in a second, but I think that brings you back to the whole point is that this season, I think, is going to be eerily similar to what we saw in 2022-23. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be frustration. There's going to be some streaks. They look great. They look bad. They look great. They look bad. And at the end of the day, you hope that there's just enough good over 82 games because you get more goaltending, because of your power play is better, because of your defense is slightly improved upon, that instead of missing by a point, maybe you only miss by, or maybe you get in by that point, by that second point. And I think what helps this year is looking at the standings is the Eastern Conference, specifically the Atlantic, is down. I mean, this year, third place is there to be had.
For sure.
I mean, Boston doesn't look that great. Right now, Tampa Bay is worse than the Sabres. I'm sorry. They're tied with the Sabres, basically, in points. They have a better point percentage, but still, Ottawa's only 1 point better than the Sabres, and then Detroit's hanging around. But yeah, I mean, that third spot is there. And even if it's not, it's something, the second wild card spot, I think is more attainable than I even thought of too.
Yeah, it's an open conference in general. The only team that's really surprised me in terms of they're performing better than I thought they would is Washington.
Yeah. Everybody else is early in the season. I did say that I felt good about.
You called it. No, 100%. We disagreed on that. I remember the opening podcast we did prior to the season. I was like, I think they're going to be trash, and no, they're actually playing really well. But yeah, to your point though, every other team is either performing as expected or underperforming, in my opinion. And things are open. So every point lost feels like a major missed opportunity to me this year. Just because again, I think I agree with you where I see it maybe similarly to 22-23 where, maybe 93 points or whatever it was. I think it was 93, right? Gets you in, which I think in a typical year, probably not.
The last few years has been good enough, and if it's going to be, I think, similar,
Okay.
we had 90. So I think last year was 91 was the Capitals, and I think it was 92 was for Florida because the Sabres had 91 the year they missed by one.
Okay.
So I think it's around that number again.
Okay. But yeah, I guess we'll see. But yeah, I need more consistent, positive play. I need them not to come crashing back down to earth every time they string a couple wins together. And to this point, I haven't seen that, and that's a problem for me.
So I guess that ties into what I started getting into, and that's the offense. That really, I think, for me, is my biggest concern with this team. The last 2 weeks I've done a lot of. I'm also a weirdo that if you give me a spreadsheet of NHL play-by-play data, I'm going to spend hours just figuring out all the nonsense that I can pull out of that. So that's what I've done the last 2 weeks. But I started with looking at how often they miss the net and where they shoot it from in that regard, and that was a concerning thing that you would hope maybe levels out over time. It really, honestly, the miss the net thing, I don't think I've seen as that big of an issue the last few games, so that's good. But definitely the article I did today that I put out, I think the shot selection and shot location is a pretty big concern for me. They're shooting. I think it was, I'll have it right in front of me. I think 49%. So the way it worked out that 77 to 78% of the goals over the last season, the beginning of this season, were scored from 0 to 30 feet away. Sabres are shooting 51% of their shots in that bucket. That seems high contextually. You would think over half their shots, that's not bad. Well, that's 27th in the league. So that's bad.
Can I ask you a question? And
yes.
And you may, I feel like you did mention this, and then maybe I'm just forgetting. What's the median? Where's the 16th ranked team?
So the 16th ranked team. Let me pull up the article right now. Hold on.
Because I know you mentioned it. I can't remember what the number was.
Yeah, I will look here shortly. Let me go.
Because I feel like the disparity wasn't that huge, and I think it's just a tight thing. Because I think you can correct this pretty easily. Yeah,
you can. So, did I put it in the bucket? Let's see. I don't think I broke it out.
Okay.
I do have it somewhere, but it's in a data file. But I don't think I broke it out one of the charts. But you're right. It's not ridiculous. Let's say, for example, if we just look at their 10 to 20 feet, they're 21%. 21.08% it looks like. If they were to jump up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spots, just going up 1%. So there's an ability to improve upon it. But really, you were again, it's only 1% difference. Well, it's actually a lot of shots when it adds up. You're looking at 400 and something shots they're at now. To jump 1%, you need a significant change. So it's not maybe as easy as it seems, but also you're 16 games in. It's a correctable thing. So that ties into the whole distance thing. And as I was saying, 49% of their shots are from the 30 to 60 range, and that's the sixth highest in the league. So that kind of goes back to what we're seeing a lot of is the poor shot selection. They're shooting a lot from the outside, and they're shooting a lot from the point. And when I was going through this, it clicked in my head, well, I remember, and we talked about it a lot in the first 2 games, talked a lot about before the season started, if you might recall, you and I had conversations about this, is the message of we need to get to the net more. We need to get second opportunities, we need to get rebounds, we need to get traffic and all that stuff and all that great stuff. And I said at the time, that's all great, dandy, fine. They do need to do that, but it can't be taking away from what they do well. Their rush offense, their creativity, all of that. That's more difficult. So as I was doing this, I was thinking in my head, I think I remember a couple of years ago, and I was right, Ryan Stimson wrote this article, and then Sean Ferris did another one on it, about rebounds and where rebounds come from. So I went and read their articles as I sit up until 2 a.m. researching and writing all this stuff out last night. which I don't even know how I'm still awake here at 10:53, but here we go. I read their articles again, and it confirmed what I thought I remembered, is actually the further you are away from the net, the likelihood of a rebound decreases. So the most common rebounds occur
Interesting.
between, I think it's 10 to 25 feet away from the net. That is the location where you get the most rebounds and second chance opportunities. If you are shooting further out with the intention of doing so will get traffic second opportunities, you are hurting yourself inherently.
I buy
It is
that.
not going to work. And then if you look at their numbers from where the locations of their shot attempts come from, that 0 to 10 feet bucket, where you would assume is where most of your rebounds opportunity would be, they are second worst in the league. Only 10% of their shots come from that area.
Yeah, that's tough.
So it's if the plan is to try to get pucks to the net, get deflections, get rebounds, it's not working. And that's, I think, one of the frustrating things when I see people say, or I hear people say it, like, you just got to get pucks to the net, stop passing. No, pass more. Get your
You gotta
creativity.
get it. Yeah, you gotta get the right pucks to the net.
Frustrating at times. It's gonna get knocked away, and and it's not gonna be there. It's gonna look frustrating, but more often than not, it's gonna work. And that's the interesting part here is we're seeing some of this stuff. The expected goal differential go down. We're seeing even their shot share kind of go down, which is also the concern. But going down, but the goal differential is coming up because I think in some of these games they're shooting less, using more creativity, and it's resulting in more goals. But at the same time, the expected goals for are going down, so some of that could just be luck. You're getting Tage Thompson just burying goals consistently, and that's what you look at. But yeah, overall, like I talked a ton about the offense there, but really, it's like literally my favorite topic this season so far. It's a really huge concern for me.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, one of the things that we've talked about kind of from the beginning is that your finishing rate, they and this is kind of like stupid to say because it's fucking obvious, but they go as far as their finishing rate, and that's been kind of their thing for 3 years now, right? Where if their finishing rate isn't amazing, they're not getting all the other stuff, right? That could maybe make up for that. And so shot distance being a thing, and we've definitely noticed watching this year that they're taking shots from further out, like for sure they are. And it almost seems like they're preaching a quantity over quality approach, which, as we know, is never a successful formula. Like you said, pucks to net. Well, it's got to be the right pucks, though. It can't just be like any puck to the net. Like that's not helpful to you. So I don't know. I think you have a team that has the capability of being a very strong finishing team, but the consistency and the maybe philosophy is not where it.
Yeah. I mean, here's the other thing really quick. I'm going to jump to the defense that is also alarming.
Okay.
So I looked at it as of yesterday going into yesterday's game. So it's pretty easy to pull the forward lines for the Sabres because it's been pretty consistent. So Tuck, Tage, and Peterka ranked 52 among all forward lines, play at least 40 minutes together. In expected goals for per 60. Not amazing, but also pretty decent. Then there's a drop. Greenway, McLeod, Zucker are 91st, which again, not bad for your third line. You'll take it.
Sure.
Your next three, I guess you could say. So your 2 second lines, which is consistent of Kulik, Quinn, Cousins, and Cousins, Quinn, Benson, and then your fourth line. So Lafferty, Malmstein, and Krebs. Those 3 lines. There's 133 applicable line combinations. Those 3 line combos rank 116th or worse.
Yeah, it's not good.
Goals for per 60. So really, it's essentially only 1.5 lines can create offense. And the biggest problem is that your second scoring line is in that group that can. And oh, by the way, you're going to miss your big dog essentially for the next maybe 2 games.
Right.
Thankfully, not longer. Because if it was longer, then I think we were having a different conversation today.
We're much more dreary today if that were the case. Yes, without question. So, Yeah, it's again, I think it all just kind of boils down to, I don't know, the philosophy more than anything. And
Probably
again, it
roster building.
losing Tage,
Somebody else
I know this is kind of like a deviation, but um, losing Tage is like such a microcosm of like you have nothing left. You have no scoring depth left. If you lose Tage, like you're toast, right? And we kind of talked about that all summer as like the major like negative hallmark of this offseason being like, yeah, okay, you just didn't do enough for your top six though. And what happens if you lose anything? And again, we talked about what happens if you don't get the same goaltending you got last year, which they're not.
Right.
And we're seeing the results of that, which aren't great. Goaltending's been like largely okay, but compared to last season, okay isn't enough.
Yeah. It's not okay. It's not okay enough yet.
Sure,
A
right?
little bit more okay. That's what I mean.
Sure, but you kind of give
Yeah,
it
I
a
get your overall point. It hasn't
yeah,
been good enough consistently, basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think it probably. I mean, I had the Tage injury thing later in the list here, but it makes sense. So we're talking about the offense to get into that.
mhm.
Again, it's good news that it's only going to be a few games here, probably. I mean, if he
Mm.
could surprise us all and he plays against St. Louis Thursday, I wouldn't recommend that. I think if the injury is what I was told it was, I would probably take a couple games. It's okay. There's 82 of these things. I don't know.
Mm.
Try to split your next two games without him and move along.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's in practice today. It's Ryan McLeod jumping up, and then that
Mhm.
bumps up Krebs, and Cousins stays where he is, and then Lafferty, I believe, is one to move to center. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you're in this point of you don't have the depth at forward
Mhm.
to sustain anything. I mean, 2 games
Right.
is fine, but one of these guys, knock on wood, you would hope not, but it's an 82 game season. You're going to lose one of these forwards, you would think, statistically, like by the numbers, for a couple weeks at some point.
At
Like
some point.
somebody's going to have a couple week injury that you're going to deal with, and
Mhm.
I just don't think they have the horse to
Agreed.
or is to withstand that, and that could be a problem.
Right.
I hope you stay relatively healthy, and that's not to mention of your two problem children that you're still trying to go with Cousins and Quinn to get them going.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if Cousins is playing well, I don't think you have that big of an issue right now the last couple of days. But the way he's going,
Right.
well improving, I think a little bit,
Mhm.
not as much and as fast as I would hope.
Mhm.
You can withstand it, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. I would say the next few games. Thankfully, you play teams that aren't that good, so
Sure.
maybe you
But
can survive.
we are at that point in the season where it's like everything could get interesting, right? It's just
Yeah,
so early and there's so much margin for possibility. I'm not even gonna say error, just margin for possibility. Uh yeah, it's again, every game counts, and I hate the stance of like, oh, if this loss, didn't occur early in the season, it occurred like some random stretch in January, nobody would even be talking about it. It's like, no, I would. Like I for sure would. We've seen firsthand how every lost point matters.
yeah,
And again, I'm gonna get annoyed when you blow it against a Montreal. I'm gonna get annoyed when you can't string more than a couple wins together when you started the year so horribly. Like what were they, 2-7 or 3-7 to start the year? I mean, you have a lot of ground to make up. That matters. It doesn't matter that it was just the beginning of the season. It was in Prague, and oh my god, it's fake. It's a fake slate of games and stupid. And okay, cool, but also you need to. This team is always going to need to scrape together every point. And I don't know, man. They just got to figure it out. Like the it's early thing is gonna like. Yeah, I'm pretty much at the point where that doesn't count anymore.
I mean, we're almost at Thanksgiving, right? So it's early thing
Right.
starting to hit here.
Right.
Um,
Agreed.
and yeah, I mean, I agree with you. If you win that Montreal game and you're 10-4 and you lose 7-5, you go afternoon game,
Mm-hmm.
goofy shit, move on. But
Mm-hmm.
where they are, they can't afford. I mean, you can't score 5 goals
I know.
and lose to Montreal's backup, who's horrendous, by the way.
Who's bad?
Yeah, you at home, you're winning in the third period. Like, just you can't, man, you can't lose. At the very least, you cannot walk out of there with 0 points.
Correct.
At the very least, and to walk out with 0 points, that's not ideal. Okay, let's talk about the defense because I know you have an article coming that tier. So I feel like you're very interested in discussing the defense pairs. So the big
Hang
note
on, real quick. Pause real quick. I do have to plug this in.
So if we're going to jump into the defense, the first thing we should touch upon is Matthias Samuelsson going to be out. Well, long term, they said. I think it might be the neighborhood. I understand probably in the 6-week range, maybe a little bit longer, but we'll see how that goes. First thing on that, like, geez, man, talk about a guy who just cannot stay healthy. We're not going to have the conversation now. I already seen it starting to percolate on Twitter, like the buyout thing, and we'll save that for like when the season is maybe over or something in March or April. We don't need to have that conversation now, but I mean that's tough for a guy who was in the press box, gets back in, and then like plays a period in 2 minutes essentially.
Yeah,
and to be out for probably a month or two. That's tough scenes there for him for sure.
Agreed.
Beyond that, though, some interesting things have occurred. So Henry Jokiharju and Samuelsson, as we said, came out of the lineup a few games ago when they started their 3-game winning streak. And Dennis Gilbert went in for a few games, and then then you got reminded that he's Dennis Gilbert and he's like a 7th defenseman, and like doesn't work if you continually play him. But they're gonna have to put him back in now, I guess, and see how that goes. The good news is, though, Jacob Bryson stepped in and has looked pretty good. Alongside Owen Powers, so that's good. That's encouraging. That's allowed Bo Byram to jump up with Darlene. That has looked pretty good. And then Connor Clifton, I think, has continued, even though he got scratched 1 or 2 games. I think he's continued to look decent this season. He's been with Dennis Gilbert, and then Jokiharju remains the odd man out here, which in itself is an interesting thing to discuss. So that's the broad, high-level picture of it. Where do you want to start to dig your teeth into here?
Let's talk about the guy who I am writing about, and who I've got an article coming out about tomorrow, in Byram, because I think he's probably the most interesting player on the defense this year because of the situation he's in, right? With his contract, you have a lot of dollars kind of locked in for a long time on that defense. And so it's going to be very curious to see what they do with him. And so if you look at his counting stats, right? I mean, he's on pace for, I think, like 50 points, which for a defenseman, as we all know, is pretty crazy. I mean, that's a really good mark, especially for, a second pairing guy, which I know he's kind of fluctuated, but that's virtually what he is. So that's interesting. And then you look at his underlyings and you can interpret them a bunch of different ways, which I don't want to give away too much, but I did touch on that in the article. So again, it's going to be interesting all around on him. I think he still remains the guy I'm going to pay the closest attention to for the rest of the year, because the range of possibilities for what they decide to do with him are just so vast, and it's going to be kind of directly dependent. And the worst thing that could happen is he posts bad underlings, but his counting stats are insane. It's going to drive up his price, because we've seen that a million times before. So I don't know. I think he's interesting. I think he remains the most interesting player on the defense this year for me.
So I'm pulling it in right now. So let's see.
Okay.
Bo Byram, because I'm posting the chart tomorrow. So he is on pace. 51 points, 15 goals, 36 assists, 51 points in his pace right now. 20% shooting percentage. Do we think that's sustainable?
No, for sure not.
Shooting 2 goals scored above expected so far?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's not going to maintain. However, I think if he's going to stay with Darlene and Power pretty much exclusively, those points are going to rack up, like, just by association at minimum, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're defensemen right now. It's kind of crazy. Byram's on pace for 51 points. Power's on pace for 62 points.
Mm-hmm.
And Darlene turned into a point machine again. He's on pace for 67.
Yeah, they're all up there. The Dowling's not surprising. That's kind of like right where he was last year, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, Byram becoming a point machine is a little bit scary. I almost want it the other way, where he's posting great impact, but isn't showing up on the score sheet to drive his numbers.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to be what's occurring. So yeah, I mean, I don't know your take on him. I think he's looked better than the analytics indicate, which again, I don't want to give away too much of what I wrote, but it's kind of that vein. But I'm curious to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I've been somebody who has, ever since he got here, has steadfastly defended him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's gotten a pretty, and I don't know if it's a whipping boy, but I think he's gotten kind of a tough ride because I think a lot of people like Middlestat. And that was the guy that was traded for. Incidentally enough, I think that Middlestat thing has calmed down because when you kind of look at like their on ice numbers, they're actually wildly similar.
Yeah.
And I think from a reduction point, like at 5-on-5, I think Kevin said this recently, like a couple games ago, maybe even last game. Byram and Middlestat were actually in the same 5-on-5 point pace for the season. Like they had the same points per 60.
That's
or
really
maybe a little bit higher.
I think Byram was higher. I'm remembering this now.
Become a power play merchant out there in Colorado, but whatever.
Right.
I don't want to get Middlestat. That's a different thing. But that's one of the things I think that. And again, his numbers from an expected goal share standpoint not been good. They're still not that great. But I think you have to understand with the player that you have here. You have a guy who is never going to be the best defensively. I think you want somebody who will drive scoring, which I think he does when he's on the ice, as we can see by his point production and then his goal differential as well. So I think that's something you want to see to get the most out of him, is to have that. I think also what's underrated is his puck skills, if you will. So that's the exits. That's how he contributes to the game offensively. Shot assist, puck movement, passing, all things kind of similar to Owen Power that I think are overlooked because you don't notice it that much. It doesn't show up on the score sheet. There's not like a advanced stat that's right in your face every particular game. You can go quickly pull and get that information. So I think that stuff gets overlooked and overvalued. And I think playing with Darlene is the perfect fit for him because, as maybe people still don't really believe it, but it is true, is Darlene is the best two-way defenseman you have on this team. So I think putting him with a strong defensive player instead of playing him with power.
I don't know how you argue against that. I think he's very clearly that way.
Yeah, maybe this year it's not as debatable. But maybe they can pass stuff that you can say, like maybe Samuelson is or something like that. But I think you're right. Now it's pretty tough to make that argument. So I think that works for the two of them together. They play well off each other. I think it helps with their exits. So yeah, I think that works. But I think overall, Byram is a player that you have to understand what you're really truly asking out of him. If you're going to go in there saying, I need better defense, you're always going to be disappointed. There's always going to be those things, those frustrations and those lapses that you kind of just have to get over and accept what he gives you in other areas. Now, having said all that, if we were sitting here in May and you're asking me, well, what do you want to give him as a contract? I'm making faces to you. And I think that's kind of what you talked about in terms of his point production. If he ends up around a 50-point player as a defenseman, and he looks good with Darlene for the entirety of the season, you're kind of like, oh, well, 50 points. Darlene plays well with your top defenseman. That might work. So, yeah, I mean, that's the conversation. Same thing, kind of similar to Samuelson, is maybe we'll talk about that down the road. And like you said, they have a lot of money tied up in there, but if somehow, some way, maybe they pull a under 26 buyout of Matthias Samuelson out of their pocket, all of a sudden there's not that $4 million commitment that you have every single for the next 5 years or whatever. So that can change the dynamic there too. But I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'm curious. I haven't looked at it yet, what you put together. I'm curious to see how that aligns with, and I think some of it will, with with what I said there, but yeah, I'm just always going to be somebody that, unless it looks really, really bad, I'm going to defend him. Like, yeah, the numbers might not look great in this regard, but you got to account for the stuff that he's doing for you.
Right. Agreed.
That's where we've graduated to in 2024, Anthony. It's not so much just all about expected goals. You have to look into the other stuff too.
Yeah, there's more stuff there, man.
The more things we have at our disposal.
It feels like every year there's like cooler stuff. Like Corey's doing new stuff this year at all three zones, which if you're not a subscriber,
really cool stuff. I started looking at pretty good stuff.
Cool. I was just lurking on his site today, and like, man, he's doing some awesome things. Yeah, analytics get better every year, and that's kind of the point of advanced data, is that it's always improving, right? You got NHL Edge now, which is another game changer, right? So it's cool. There's a lot of nuance, and the days of going on natural stat trick and just pulling out a Corsi rate, from 8-9 years ago, those are gone. Yeah, so like you're, and part of us producing stuff is just we're expected to have all those tools and look at them all kind of in conjunction. So again, it's really interesting stuff, and in the whole grand macro view of all that nuance, I still think, to me, Durham is the most interesting player on the team.
No, I agree. I think it really, and I mean, the conversation around him, I think alone kind of tells you that. Like, you just tweet out Boban. Like, tomorrow your article is going to go out. There's going to be, I took my headphones off. There's going to be wildly different views on each side.
100%.
Like, it's, so and it says I feel bad for you, but also, like, I'm curious to see what that response is of, like, well, there's going to be a lot of, he's terrible, get him out of here, trade him right now. And
don't feel bad for me, because that's kind of the point of why I picked him. I knew the whole nature of the article, which I can, I guess, reveal. It's not a detriment to do that. It's basically, for the last couple of years, it's happened enough times for me to notice. I'm not gonna say it's happened a lot, but I've like noticed it. That folks are challenging us, like, hey, you always write articles that kind of where the data kind of fortifies what you're seeing. Why don't you write one where it doesn't? And that's something I've wanted to do. I plan to do a few times this year. And I felt we had enough games where I could maybe do the first one and dip my toe, where Byram's, let's say, baseline analytics are not jiving so much with what I'm seeing from him. I think he's performing better than his expected metrics indicate. And so I tackled that first. So that in that vein, right, that's kind of why I put this together. And so I'm very interested to see how people feel. And I kind of intentionally picked a guy who's a little controversial, because that's kind of the whole nature of what I'm doing, with this kind of exercise experiment, whatever you want to call it.
No, and I think that's a good way to go about it. I think that it makes it interesting when you go into stuff, because that's how it was with the shooting stuff in the last couple of weeks. Like, I didn't know the answer going in. Like, let's pull this data together. Let's see. I didn't know what I had a rough idea from past what it generally would be, but I'm like, let's see what the goal differences are in each one of these buckets. And does it drive to what it was? Sure. Okay. Now let's see. Are they really shooting from this far away like it looks like? And it worked out. But yeah, I think it makes it more interesting, especially when you have a team that frustrates you consistently, to find new angles, how to cover them, and to make it interesting while doing so. I think it's super important.
But yeah, the act of, let's say, actively seeking out data points that I guess, I don't know if I'd say disagree with, because that's like the wrong framing, but for lack of a better term, disagree with, right, was new and kind of interesting. And I just taking on a new frontier of kind of how we do this and the type of stuff we provide. So I'm interested to see how that gets received. But yeah, I'm fully 100% expecting it to be a mix of, you're fucking crazy, he's terrible, and no, you're right, this isn't fair to him. So it'll be unique.
It'll be interesting for sure. Okay, so I had power play on the list, but I'm going to skip it because we're rolling along, and I think we're on a good pace here. So we're going to take power play off the list. There's two more things I want to get to. Okay. The first one, so we'll touch on the goalies last. The next one I want to go to, while we're kind of talking about performance levels, up, down, sideways, middle, is the fourth line. So the reason why I want to focus on them is because that's where a lot of the offseason moves occurred. Besides McLeod, who's playing well, Zucker playing well. So you could say his middle six moves going very well. Very well. Both of them. If you would have told me that Jason Zucker is on pace for 56 points, I would have called you bananas back in September.
Yeah. That's
great.
like it would be the second highest of his career, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah. So
yeah,
that's going very well.
Mm-hmm.
But that fourth line, just for how good it looked in the preseason, just hasn't come through. Lafferty, and of course, is the guy that you give 2 years to.
Right.
Lafferty just hasn't. I mean, you could just set him on minors and who cares, put him on waivers, whatever. It's a small amount of money, so I'm not overly concerned about the term, but still, like it's just
still odd.
Not going great for you. Malenstein, I guess, serves his purpose, but really all it is kind of what I thought it would be when they got him. Skates fast, hits people. Okay, I mean he's a decent penalty killer, so I should give him that too. That's not nothing, right? That's something. But again, you give him a second round pick. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I forget who tweeted it, but it was a really good tweet, and it's someone from the Sabres kind of like Twitter community, and I feel bad that I'm not remembering, but someone was basically like, you spent X $1 million and a second round pick on this, and they just show you how the fourth line has produced or hasn't, I guess, and it's ugly.
I think it was Aaron, by the way. I remember seeing that too.
That could be right.
But yeah, it's for me. Kubel's going to get back in here, so I wonder. He's only played 3 games. So I wonder if we start to see him consistently play here, if that starts to move a little bit.
Okay.
I haven't really been. This is a tough thing to say. As I'm saying it, I think about the turnover that he had in the Montreal game. But I was going to say, like, I haven't minded Krebs, but there's still those weird plays. I mean, the points, if you want it, as a fourth liner, I paid for 11 goals and 27 points. I mean, if you would take 30 points from your fourth line center, hands down, every single season.
Yeah, easily.
So that's interesting that that the production is kind of there in a sense for him, as opposed to years past. So I think I'll stick to mostly I haven't minded him. I still think there's some things that you got to clean up, like that cross ice pass at your own blue line. Like I get it, trying to make a play, but man, like that is not the spot. That tie game or that never ahead, but either way, just not the spot. But yeah, I guess it's more of the other. And I feel bad for Malenstein. I think he does. So maybe it's more Malenstein is not giving me more than I really thought I would get there, especially for a second round pick. But at the same time, 5
He's giving me exactly what I expected.
Maybe it is exactly what you should have expected. Now that I'm saying it,
yeah.
So maybe it's more like Lafferty. It's like just not anything, and then Kubel, you're not getting
even him though. I mean, it's not like he's performing any different than years past. Like he's fallen off or something, and you're not getting what you thought you were getting. It's who he is. It's who he's been. I don't know, man. I have a hard time just kind of allowing that notion of like, oh man, he's not giving you what you thought you were getting. Well, what did you think you were getting exactly from him?
Fair. It's very fair. I mean, Lafferty, I think if I can remember correctly, he was a little bit of a beneficiary of that. He was
existing on the Pittsburgh Penguins during.
No, he was
era. Oh,
it was Vancouver. I'm pretty sure is where he
did his best work. Is that true? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was last season. He was on.
Okay. He was definitely there last season. I didn't think he was very good though. I thought he had a tough year. Maybe I'm misremembering.
Yeah, so last year he had 13. Let's just all strength. He had 13 goals and 24 points last year. From a production standpoint, his on ice numbers in Vancouver, I'm pretty sure were decent as well. I mean, 40%, which is the highest of his career the last 4 years. 48% with the goal share, 50% Corsi, and a 50% goal differential playing on that fourth line. But I mean, a lot of that can be tied to So I'm pretty sure that was the Granlund, Lafferty, and Dakota Joshua line. I think that was that was the trio there. And looking at it now, you can say, well, it was probably the other two on that line that kind of drove that. And you're seeing essentially the outcome of that now. So there's still time, but I just want to call it out that you're not even really even getting the defense from that line either that you would want.
No, and that's the big thing, right? Where if they were just like low event minute eaters, that's one thing.
Whatever,
like
who cares?
That works, right?
Yeah.
You can make that a thing. I mean, shoot, they did it with a log line for years, and it worked really well. But yeah, when they're just kind of getting caved, and oof, that's tough business, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see, they are. Yeah, I mean 2.72 expected goals against and a 1.71 expected goals for.
Yeah, it's not good. And again, like I said, if it was just like a low event kind of thing, like cool, that works. We can work with that. Beat people up, allow anything to happen.
Funny enough, that's what you're getting out of Cousins, Quinn, and Benson. 1.69 goals for per 60.
Like you're
against per 60.
But what you're not getting there is the physicality, where that's where that's valuable. Like, nothing happening, but you're pummeling the crap out of the opposing, top line. Well, great. That's
making it miserable. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's good. That's how the log line made their entire reputation. That was literally what they did always, and it worked really nicely. And if you're not getting that, well, you're kind of screwed. I mean, your fourth line is useless. It's a detriment. Where that was one of the primary focuses of your offseason, so that's bad. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Need to see better.
For sure. Even like their shot shares break even, but that's the lowest in the team. So that means they have the puck release on the other lines.
Right.
So a lot of it is not ideal there. That's for sure. So that's got to get better. I wonder if Kubel going in makes that look better. But we'll see. I think he was kind of unfairly ostracized. There was the guy out.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see. I have faith there that he can maybe help boost that a little bit.
Okay.
Last thing on the list here to get to, the goaltender situation. Always a fun topic to talk about. So the news of the day, I guess it is the day, besides the injuries, James Reimer is back. The Sabres claimed him off of waivers from the Anaheim Ducks. So to use a soccer term, his loan is over. They were called from loan, Anthony. He's back with the big club now.
So funny how that all worked out.
But the way it works, for those of you that are unaware, since Reimer was on the Ducks roster for 30 days, they are now unable to automatically send him down to Rochester. So if they wanted to send him down to the minors, he would need to go back on the waivers again. And now the trick of that is what Anaheim can do is swipe him back, and then they can immediately stash him down in the AHL.
Right.
So can't really do that. So now you're still in a scenario with 3 goaltenders.
Yeah.
I think we touched on Luukkonen. There was a lot of inconsistency there. I think he got himself. I think I tweeted about it after they won against the Rangers. All of a sudden, he was back up in that mid range again. He was near the bottom of the league in 2 or 3 games. He popped all the way back up to being middle of the league, and he had that rough outing in Montreal. But maybe we can tie that to the injury. And okay, if you deal with that, hopefully when he comes back fully healthy, he's back going again. The big conversation point here is Levi.
Right.
So not only are the numbers bad, where he's statistically, not even in the advanced numbers where he's statistically one of the worst goaltenders in the league, but even if you just want his goals against average and save percentage, one of the worst statistical goalies in the league this season. So that's in itself is not a good thing. But then you have a situation here. I do think he's going to start Thursday against St. Louis because of the Luukkonen injury. But still, you're going to have, let's say he does play, you're going to have 3 games in 27 days, and you only started 2 of them. One of them you got in the third period.
I don't know how a guy is supposed to exist in that environment, especially someone so young who's developing.
Yeah. If James Reimer wants to hang out and play 3 games in 28 days, fine. Who cares?
Right. He's
But
39 years old.
Is a much different situation there. He in a sense, he doesn't know how to be a backup. Like, like he's never done that. He played every single game at Northwestern or Northeastern. Sorry. He played every single game, and he was on the junior team. He was on everywhere he's played. He plays. He's not the backup.
No.
Went to Rochester, played a ton, and like even like last year, when he was in the NHL, he was playing. He wasn't sitting around a lot. When he was up, he played. So, and I think it's funny. It goes back to like I think our season preview episode. We brought this very topic up. We looked at the schedule, right? We were like, well, if he only, if Luukkonen gets going and gets hot, like there's only this game, that game, and this game, and that's basically how that worked out over the first 2 months. We were almost pretty exact. So, I think once you get healthy here in goal, the obvious choice is you send Levi down and just let him play. It'll be interesting to see if they take all 3 out west when they go, just to be safe, and then deal with it after that. Because now they have the open roster spot with Samuelson on IR. They'll carry 3 maybe for a little bit. And I can see them taking 3 on their West Coast trip and then doing what they will after that.
Yeah, I think that I mean, if you're not going to do that, why claim Reimer then? You know what I'm saying? I think that's definitely their plan after. But I agree with you. They're going
to,
right. They're gonna take 3 out west, and then I think Levi goes down, which is the right thing for him. It's not beyond just performance, right? Which hasn't been good. It's the environment. That's not a conducive way to develop a young goalie. Playing twice a month, it doesn't work, man. So I would very much support the idea of sending him back down. And again, I don't know how you could have watched him at all this year and been like, no, this is fine. Seeing him come in cold in the last game was like so indicative of what they're doing is not correct. At the moment,
you had a point where he had 2 shots against and both went in the net.
Exactly right. So
you can say, to be fair, like both of those, like one was a screen, the other one you had no chance, but still 2 shots against, both were in your net.
Right.
So tough scenes for him. And like to be clear, like I feel like when I put the article out, a lot of people were taking the approach that like maybe not taking the approach, but like I don't want to like say that I think that he's bad or he's going to be bad. Like he's not going to be a good goalie ever for them. I mean, we don't know. Goalies are goofy and stupid, as you've said numerous times. But I think it's more about this is a 22-year-old you want to develop properly. He's going through struggle right now, and he's really not able to work it out. Essentially, he can work on things in practice, sure, but he doesn't see ice for 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks in a game to work on certain things, and then you're cold and you play one game and oh my gosh, you're bad in that game. Well, buddy, go sit for 2.5 weeks, like toss the inning. That's the way Lindy works, basically.
Right.
I just think it's the best overall situation for all parties involved. I honestly think
it is. And again, it's not like Reimer's going to give you anything worse than what Levi's giving you. I mean, they're tough to do.
It would be. Don't challenge him, but it would be. I was just going to say, I think I know exactly what's going to happen. He's going to play against St. Louis, and he's going to look really good. And they're, I mean, like, he had a good game because Kevin Adams, that's his boy, that's his dude. So that's my I want him to do well, but my concern is like if he does do really well, then they're like, oh well, maybe we just kind of see this thing out here, and then I guess we'll just carry 3 goaltenders because why not? And then my head might roll off my shoulder.
Yep.
Because I can't stand that.
No, neither. If they do that, I'd lose it. But there's no way they're doing that.
No way.
There's no way. There's no way they think less ice time for Levi is the move here. Like, to what end? It's utterly pointless, and it flies in the face of basically everything Kevin Adams has done with prospect development since he's come in. Like, there's no way to do that.
Levi has always been the one they've treated differently, though. If you think about it.
I don't care. I don't buy it.
I know you don't care, but I'm telling you, like, he has been the one they've treated differently.
Man.
He was the guy who played 7 games out of college, and they're like, he's our starter next season.
fucking yelling at me. No, I'm just kidding. No. No, but I don't buy it. It's not just ill advised. Like trying to make a 20-year-old goalie your starter and just thinking like, "Wee, this will work." But it's just stupid. It's senseless. Like I don't think he would do something completely senseless.
You would hope not.
I don't know. I would hope not.
You would hope not. But it's one of those situations that you would hope that's not the case. But then when I look at the evidence, one of those things. Okay. I gotta say that hour flew by.
It did.
Wow.
That went by very quickly. We had a lot to cover.
A lot to talk about. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
In some regards, interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good or a bad thing. I don't know. Maybe it's like a middle thing.
It's a middle thing right now. I think it is firmly a middle thing. Yeah.
But there's some good. There's some bad.
There's some good and there's some bad.
Okay. So November 13th already. Wild.
Crazy.
Blues tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Flyers on Saturday. Flyers. Yeah, I would struggle against that team. They're going to win tomorrow, and then they're going to make us all miserable on Saturday. That's what's going to happen this week. They just never play well against the Flyers, man. That's how it goes. And then they go west, Anthony. They go west. James Reimer revenge game on Friday.
Which I feel like historically they do pretty well.
They do. And, I mean, for the love of God, you're playing the Kings, Ducks, and Sharks. You don't come out of there with 4 out of 6 points, I might lose my mind.
Fair enough.
In your back-to-back games is the Ducks and Sharks. It's not like you're playing the Kings, Ducks back-to-back. Like, you get the Kings on Wednesday, you get the Ducks on Friday, and then you get the Sharks on Saturday. Come on now. And the nice thing in the schedule is for us, for those of us that do stay up late and watch these games, the only one that is on a weeknight is the 10:30 game on Wednesday. 10:30 start. Miserable, by the way. That's
the worst. There's no way I'm staying up for that. It's not possible. I may not even make the beginning of it. To be completely honest. Yeah.
Friday is 10 o'clock. And then Saturday night, you get a nice 8 o'clock game out west. So, not too bad there. Like a normal game an hour later.
Yeah.
And then you come back for 2 games at home.
Right.
2 or 3. No, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They play all their games at home? 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7 of their next 8 are at home. They're gonna have what is their entire February schedule road games in March?
I don't know.
I feel like they played so many home games. Am I wrong?
No.
But a lot of home games.
I'm trying to
understand the stretch right now that they're in. We're a ton of home games.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting. Okay. So I'll say this again. You get going here. You got to stretch of hockey to pick up some points. Let's just hope the get to going part happens. Okay, so I think that's it for us. Good to have you back, Anthony, on here again talking hockey, fun stuff.
Yeah, it's long overdue.
We definitely have to have the conversation on One Hundo because that's the next one.
Yes, we got to plan something fun for that for sure.
Got to put our brains together. Maybe use a broader group to get something crazy and fun going on. So thanks for listening, and we will talk to you again soon for episode 100 for the next one. So stay tuned to what fun activities we'll bring to that. Maybe we'll bring. No, we can't do that. That would be silly.
Bringing Bill
in, but he was never part of this one. So that would not work that well. All right, never mind on that. We'll scratch that idea. But
by the way, I knew exactly where you were going with it.
Maybe I'll just pull up all of the guests we had for these 100 and just bring them all back up for 2 minutes.
That's really funny.
So we'll do that.
Just everybody in the loop. Everyone gets 30 seconds of airtime.
Everybody gets 2 minutes to talk about that episode you had in the 100. Remember we talked about this 3 years ago? Okay, so thanks for listening, and we will talk to you again soon. Enjoy the games. Hopefully some wins here so we can have some positivity because positivity is better than negativity. And, all right, talk to you later. See ya.